Hey everyone, Emmerron here. So we are going to be talking about a game that I meant to talk about in a more comprehensive manner much sooner than this. So long story short, this was supposed to be up by Talk Like a Pirate Day back in September. This was not entirely my fault this time. It's been a really crazy fall for me anyway, and that definitely hasn't helped. But the origin of my problem started with a shipping delay when I requested a review copy shortly after Gen Con for the game that we're going to be talking about. And I don't place blame for this on really anybody. I don't place it on Free League. I don't place it on the shipping companies whatsoever, really. Things got messed up. It's not a big deal. Like, it happens. And especially because Free League's main offices are in Sweden, and they, from the sounds of it, were shipping from within the US here to get it to me. Things happen. International borders, laws, all that are really annoying and difficult to deal with at the best of days. So no shade is being thrown with this statement. It's more to serve as an explanation for why less than a week before Christmas, I am recording this instead of all the way back at the appropriate time, back at Talk Like a Pirate Day. So apologies for that aside, let's go ahead and talk about our subject for today. So first and foremost, this is going to be more of a scripted review, unlike my normal videos, which are fairly off the cuff, and I might prepare some bullet points and then talk over those. This one, I'm going to be reading more directly from a script. That's not for any legal reason or anything, but I have a bad tendency of rambling. So this is going to keep me on focus so that hopefully this sounds more cohesive than some of my other videos, because this is going to be more of a formalized review and less of a first impressions, which is more what I am known for. So with that, let's talk about Pirate Borg. So unlike the other two mainline Borg games that Free League publishes, Pirate Borg is not made by Stockholm Cartel, but by Luke Stratton of Emmerron. In the past, Luke has worked on pirate-themed supplements for D&D 5th edition, but has now taken a leap to creating a wholly standalone game set in the dark Caribbean, a world that he has created along with the game, which is based on the increasingly popular and rules-like game system popularized by Pirate Borg. On his website, there exist a ton of supplemental maps and boats for the game for use with both VTTs as well as physical tabletop. But the question we're going to ask today is, how does this spin-off, published under the open creative license that the Borg system uses, how does this compare to the mainline Stockholm Cartel entries? Let's have a look. So as you can see here, I have both a copy of the Deluxe Edition as well as a copy of the regular edition so that I can compare what you get with each one. The bulk of them inside is going to be the same. Mostly the differences are cosmetic, with the Deluxe Edition, as you might be able to tell, featuring more of a deluxe leather. I'm not sure if it's PU leather or actual leather. I bet it's PU though. It's, lower cost and all that to mass publish. But so it's got a leather cover, a foil finish on the text, as well as a double-sided map, which I won't unfold here, but it's a double-sided map of the game's world. It also features two ribbon bookmarks. One of them it's a little harder to see because it's black, but and I'm wearing that, so of course. But you get two ribbon bookmarks in here as well that are not featured in the standard edition of the book. Beyond that, though, the double-sided map, just so you're aware of what it contains, one side is the wider dark Caribbean, the other is a depiction of Coral Town, which is the campaign that Luke has created as a setting at the back of the book. So the cover of the regular edition, by contrast, this is the same kind of hardcover that you'd see in the standard Mork or Cyborg books. I think it's really nice, honestly. It is kind of lightly textured on the front, where the art kind of folds, the folds in the jacket. The cutlass has a sleek finish to it. So it is very nice. This is still a very nice book. It's definitely, I would say, worth the $40 if you're going to buy into the game overall. But this is going to be, without those ribbon bookmarks. You don't get a map packaged with this, as far as I'm aware. Obviously I did get this as a review copy, so there may be some add-ons that you can buy as like a package deal with this that I am not privy to. However, this is what I have. Everything else in these editions, beyond the covers, beyond the, more aesthetic kind of inclusions, are going to be the same. So the paper quality inside is the same. It's very nice, kind of, it's a smooth paper without being glossed. So it kind of feels like really high quality notebook paper would be probably the best comparison I would have. And the tables and such inside, like you saw briefly, the front cover has a series of tables. That is going to be the same both for the deluxe and the standard edition of the book. And the other things that exist in here that Luke, I believe, has absolutely gotten right are, quick reference in the back cover, and then a bunch of random tables in the front cover. And then there's a couple of additional like indices and stuff in the back that are going to be familiar to those of you who have looked at a physical copy of Borg. It is pretty much the same stuff. So Luke has gotten all of this right so far. For being a third party kind of publishing of a Borg game, it's very clear Luke has taken great care to like make sure that the feel of the book largely emulates the feel of a Mork or Cyborg book, which is incredibly good. I'm very happy for him doing that. So let's talk about the game system. If you haven't seen it already, my crew and I played a demo of the game using one of the scenarios out of the back of the book a few months ago, back when I got my original review copy. I'll put a link to that up here in the corner as well as down in the description, so that if you do want to watch that later and get a feel for what it looks like in real time, you can. The VOD is largely unedited, so it is a little long, but it is going to have all of the various breaks and stuff by and large removed, so it'll be at least watchable in that format. But yeah, go ahead and give that a watch if you want to see what the game looks like in action. But as far as the rules themselves go, they're going to play very similarly to Borg, where dark fantasy and quick resolution of skills in combat are at the forefront. Similar to Borg, magic here is also at a premium, with most characters not having much, if any, early on. Similarly, there are a variety of thematically appropriate classes with their own perks and detractors, with the first 6 being more typical of a Borg-style game, and the latter 2 are something a little more unique that we're going to cover in a moment. Similar to the other Borg games, this one features a point-based second chance system for dice rolls called Devil's Luck that works the same as the Omen or Glitch system in Mork and Cyborg respectively. These allow the player to negate unfavorable criticals or reroll dice, along with several other situationally helpful uses. The book also features a bestiary of sorts, separated by factions ranging from semi-accurate historical depictions of actual nations that were involved in the Caribbean during the 19th century, such as the British and the French, as well as Lovecraftian horrors from the deep and everything kind of in between. The Doomsday-style mechanic of a countdown marked by apocalyptic events also makes a return, but this time with a twist. The events are outlined in a 6x6 grid meant to be played in either vertical or horizontal order, with the 7th event leading to the end of the world. You can still roll dice in the same manner as Borg or Cyborg, but definitely this feels more like these events are made to map a campaign overall, and maybe are better tailored to doing that than being purely random, but your mileage may vary. Borg games are always built to be more of a bit of chaos. Balance is not part of the equation typically. And so if you play this way, it'll end up feeling more like a campaign where the world is developing and events are unfolding one thing after another. And it could let you play something a la the Outer Wilds, where you maybe loop back through an apocalypse repeatedly until you find a way out. Or don't. That is kind of the beauty of that. The way you puzzle through the world and interact with it can be wildly different through each playthrough, even if you were to do this each way, with the campaign guide at the back of the book kind of helping to go explain what that looks like. And the focus definitely doesn't, I think, detract from the genre where randomness kind of is governing most other things. Having some structure can be very helpful, I think. So the quirks of the system start with the possibility of death not being quite so permanent. The Dark Caribbean is cursed, and what dies here is destined to rise again if it's not fully destroyed to either ash or to pulp. And when I say everything, I do mean everything. That chicken that you ate for dinner, I hope you dealt with the skeleton, or else it's going to be knocking around under the house all night. The shark you killed during the day in defense of your boat and your crew, come nightfall, that thing's going to come back for vengeance, so you better find a safe place to hide on land. Thankfully, there is a sort of reward for this way of living. This being the hallucinogenic ash that comes from the burning of the undead. This has all manner of different effects, ranging from large amounts of temporary HP to instant death. So, a lot of fun to play, right? There are even rules governing a trade of it on the pages discussing its procurement and use. These are near the very front of the book, placing it as sort of a central element of the wider narrative of Pirate Borg. And so this is where we're going to talk about the optional classes within the game. The first of which is known as a Haunted Soul. So these arise from the main feature of the Dark Caribbean being a place where death does not exist. In this class, the player who has died can come back as one of a variety of horrific bump in the night type creatures. These ranging from ghosts to vampires to skeletons to zombies, and their detractors and benefits of each one of these monstrosities is quite well defined, and they are quite varied. So each one is going to feel fairly unique, and they have different ways of continuing to cheat death beyond the fact you've been resurrected as one of these horrific beings. And so the main issues that I can see with these in a wider campaign is that they do add a lot of bonuses into play potentially, depending on which class you're playing, and they could lead to some fairly skewed play on the side of things feeling way too much in the player's favor. So obviously GMs, just be ready for that. Overall, I do think though they are fairly well balanced. I don't think that you're going to see any of these run too far out of the park, but as with most Borg games, again, balance is not in the initial design document. The second optional class is referred to as a Tall Tale. So this is more of a general category. These are going to be probably the largest departure from the mainline Borg games compared to the Haunted Soul, which feels more like an optional rule than it does its own class. The Tall Tale is indeed its own sort of category and class all unto itself. Taking this class, you take the form of either a mythical being or magical animal, each with their own unique benefits and detractors, but all of which honestly feel pretty interesting. The main issue that I have with these is that several of them feel very single purpose in their design, so a player may have a harder time getting as much mileage out of these as they would some of the more traditional classes, as not all of these options get the benefit of a bonus class, which is going to be a departure from the Haunted Soul, where it's more of a layer on top of a traditional class rather than its own thing. So the main issue here with Tall Tales more specifically is if you're a magical animal and you don't have hands, your gear doesn't really work with you. And so it's going to be a bit of a struggle to, I think, find your way through the game in that context. So GMs, again, you and your table can kind of experiment with this as needed. I think it does open up some interesting possibilities where the whole crew maybe starts as, you know, a Noah's Ark of magical animals sailing through the Dark Caribbean and doing pirate shenanigans as animals. But yeah, it's going to require, I think, a little bit of doctoring maybe on the GM side to make that campaign feel as compelling as one played with maybe more traditional classes or characters. So continuing along with the changes and departures of a typical Borg game, Pirate Borg also features a naval combat system that is fairly in-depth and thought out. This is both a blessing and a curse for this system, in my opinion, as it definitely increases the connection players will have to the setting as they own a ship together in a fashion similar to Death in Space, another of Stockholm Cartel's games. Having the sense of ownership is an amazing feature of a game, as it does add a layer of player ownership that directs their play, and it makes for great storytelling. The main issue that my crew and I had with the rules for this when we played was that they didn't work super well to explain some of the nuances, some of the technical aspects of, piloting that ship, fighting in that ship. And then this runs, as a consequence, very counter to that identity of a Borg-style game being very rules-light, quick to pick up, and easy to understand. In fairness, Limithron has released a video since my playthrough that we did not have access to when we did play that more deeply and thoroughly explains the naval combat system to make it more understandable for people like me coming from the more rules-like Borg systems that have less of an emphasis on these type of things. One final notable departure from the mainline Borg games that Luke has taken is the substitution of a quick one-shot to close out the book with a whole campaign sitting with a stated goal. This gives encouragement to the GM to take as long or as short as needed with the campaign, allowing shortcutting to the final goal in as quick as, I believe, 2 or 3 sessions, but it does place a lot of work on the GM's hands without much in the way of overall direction as to how this is supposed to look. There are some tables that I could see this working really well for, but for me, I did appreciate that there were some one-shot style adventures that both Cyborg and Morkborg had with Lucky Flight Takedown and Rot Black Sludge respectively. Both did a really, really good job of highlighting both the atmosphere and expectations of a GM for either game, as well as more of a template for writing your own adventures. And I feel that the absence of this in Pirate Borg really does impact some of the accessibility of the game for less experienced players and GMs. To remedy this, Limithron has 2 more adventures for the game that are more focused on one-shot style play, in both Buried in the Bahamas, which is more of an on-ground, on-foot style play, as well as the Battle of Dead Man's Cove, which is more of a naval combat scenario. But being that these are paid supplements, they aren't as accessible as some of the bonus content for either Morkborg or Cyborg, and so this does tend to hurt it just a little bit, because it's one more thing you do have to buy if you want some of that more instant-in style of play. Overall, I do think that this game is a wonderful game to play with your crew who are into rules medium systems, especially if they're ready for something that is more tailored to a short to medium length campaign with pirate and Caribbean style themes and set pieces. But a warning to GMs is to be prepared to do a little more reading on the system than your average OSR or Borg style game to prepare for the asks on the GM side of things for naval combat and the setting, as Pirate Borg, as written, doesn't offer quite as much guidance as the other entries in the series do. The places where it emulates the mainline entries to retain their identity feel incredibly familiar and will make perfect sense to anyone coming from other board games to this one, and many of the departures and innovations do add quite a bit to the game, provided you're up for the learning curve that a few of them require. So, ultimately, I think Pirate Borg is a truly great game. I do think that it's very well made. I think that the art in it is incredibly well done. I think that it's clear Luke has a very deep passion for all things kind of pirate themed, and the golden age of piracy clearly is something he has studied quite a lot, just based on a lot of the historical inclusions in the book itself. My only concern with the game is that, unlike Cyborg and Morkborg, there are far less things in here that are kind of tailored to players who are unfamiliar with the Borg system. There's not as much specificity on certain elements of the game, like even the apocalypse table. You kind of have to imply that it's a 7th day, the 7th bad thing happens, the world comes to an end. It's not really specifically stated that way, which, I mean, you as a GM might interpret that differently. And again, I think having GM empowerment isn't a bad thing. I think that by large, the way that the Borg system in general works is to allow the GM as much leniency as they can get. But I also think that having a general sense or providing a general guide for a GM when they're just starting to read or understand a new system is also critically important, because without a clear template or guide or something to give you a standard of like, this is what a quintessential adventure in this game looks like or in this world looks like, GM's wheels are going to spin a bit. And it's definitely something I had to contend with when I was trying to consider how I was going to do a one-shot before those were published. But overall, I think that this is just a really solid entry. I think that for those of you who are quick reads on rules, and especially with the inclusion of the Naval Combat Primer video that Limithron has released, I do think that this game is fairly accessible. I think that you'll have a great time. Those of you coming from rules heavier systems probably will also find quite a bit to love about some of the crunchier bits of this compared to your average Mork, Borg, or Cyborg, where the rules lightness of it is, I guess, more the point than it feels like it was for Pirate Borg, where this is more of a thing that clearly is built on top of it. But yeah, overall, I would recommend it for those of you who are prepared for something that's a bit more of a commitment. Or if you've got the money to spend on one of the, kind of one-pager supplements that serve as an introductory one-shot adventure, more similar in style to those that are published from Mork, Borg, and Cyborg, I think you'll probably have a good time with it. But that's going to be it for this video. Above my head right now are going to be my various patrons scrolling by or fading in and out as I deem fit in my editing. Again, thank you to all my patrons who you see on the screen. You make it easier to do the things that I do here, and with your support, it's allowed me to be a lot less stressed about little incidental things that I need, such as my brand new ring light, which shines the full force of the sun on my face now because my last one shorted out. But thank you all for your support. Greatly appreciate it. If you do want to support me, there is a link down in the description that connects you with my Patreon so that you can get videos like this a day early, as well as credit in my videos. Ultimately, though, that is it. So I hope, as always, you all have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Stay healthy, stay safe, and until next time, peace.